Sometimes business is a marathon, other times it's a race. In this case, well, it's a little bit of both. Today we're speaking with Bijan, who's the owner of 4 locations of spin studios. We're so excited. Let's dive in. Hi guys, welcome back to Montreal's Elite Unleashed. We're here today with Bijan Balori. We're so excited to talk to you about your journey and how you came to be the proprietor of 4 spin studio locations. Talk to us about your journey. How did all this start, and why get into fitness entrepreneurship, I guess?
Was not part of the plan at all. I guess, if you were to talk to me, or if I were to talk to me like when I was 20 and be like, hey, this is what's going to happen, I'd be like, no way, impossible. Because it was definitely nothing that was in my life at that time. Like that was just not a big part of my life.
What were you doing at 20?
It was a rock band, and you were you're touring.
Oh, not touring, but like in Montreal.
Oh no way! You actually had a rock band?
Yeah.
No
way.
Yeah.
Wow.
When you said it, I was like, oh, cool. I guess I must have talked to you about my band. Like, cool. Yeah, I was like super into music. I loved music. When I was in high school, I decided to learn the guitar. Nice. I saw a guy play the guitar, and I'm like, wow, that's the coolest thing in the world. I would love to do that. And then basically played constantly and became okay. And then
that's usually how it works.
That's usually how it works.
Practice forever. And
someone who doesn't know much, they'd be like, wow, this guy's amazing. Anyone who's like really good would be like, that guy is okay.
Sweetie minor, bud.
Exactly. Well done. Exactly. And so, and then my best friend Scott, who played violin, he's like, oh man, I'd love to be in a band. So he's like, I'll play bass. And he decided to like just pick up like a bass. And then there's a guy in my high school who was like, his party trick with the girls was like to sing to them, and he could like sing like those NSYNC songs like
wow
perfectly, you know.
We have a friend who has that party trick as well,
right? Yep. So
it's dangerous.
It is unstoppable. He was our singer, and then we went through a few drummers, and we had a band, and I was like, oh yeah, for sure we're gonna be famous. That's gonna be my life. But no.
It turns out it's a little more difficult than it seems, I guess.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. That's funny. That's actually how we started as well. I don't know if you know that, but John and I had a metal band in high school, and we did some tours on eastern part of Canada, and it was it was pretty wild.
You guys actually toured?
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty all right. We opened for some relatively decent bands, and it was a lot of fun. But amazing. Man, it's not easy to break through and get signed or any of that stuff.
And you also see the industry, and you're like, man, it is hard because you're seeing the people above you too, and you're like, man, you guys are struggling.
If I knew what I knew now, and I was in a band, and I was still young, because now it's like we're old. Why would we be in a band? That's weird. It's like, come on, guys. It's like a bunch of 18-year-olds. Like, yeah, no, that's weird. But if I knew what I knew now with business, I feel so much more confident that we would have got signed and we could have monetized it a little bit. But man, that's a hard business. It's
for sure.
business.
Everyone's hustling, and everyone's so good.
Yeah.
Like, when you see how good people actually are, I think it's the same thing with sports too. Like when you get into say running or biking, and you're like, oh, you start getting better, and you have some like heroes that you kind of know that are local. You're like, great, and you're like, oh, maybe I can kind of be a hero one day. And then you find out what like the elites do, and then you're like, this gap is not even like imaginable.
Yeah.
It's like it is physically impossible for me to ever get there. I find like doing anything into depth, I find like you start to get this huge appreciation for how good the elite are.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it's also it's interesting because if it is something you're passionate about, then that can inspire you more than it can demotivate you. But if it's something that you're just like, I'm doing this to get chicks, and then you realize like, shit, man, I'm never going to be that good at guitar.
Yeah.
I got to drop guitar and find another way to get chicks.
Exactly.
Let me start a business.
Hey, I mean,
Hey-o.
Not totally wrong, dude. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then fast forward, and what was the journey after that? So the band disbanded, I imagine.
It did. It is. There's always drama in a band.
Of course.
With the lead singer. God.
Those guys.
We kicked ours out, actually.
Shut up, John. I'm going to start crying.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we're familiar with the drama.
No, but okay, last thing on music, though. But I find music is an amazing school, like if you're in a band, for management, because you'll never be in something that you are so tied to emotionally than writing your own music.
Yeah, totally.
Like it's like you wrote something, and then like if you're showing it to friends, especially if there's lyrics involved and it's about like anything in your life, you're like, let me show you the inner works of my emotions and everything that means anything to me, and it's so important. Let me show it to you.
Yeah.
And then people
raw.
are like, wow, that really sucks, and you're like,
You're like, God damn it.
like this is literally representation of who I am as a human, and you say it sucks. So it's like if you can get over that stuff,
Yeah.
one, it builds you as a person, and two, like if when you have a whole bunch of people that are working and they're like they're everything means so much to them, and you can make that kind of work, man. When it comes to a business, like people care about the job, but never as much as like they care about something that they wrote that represents them as a human, you know.
That must be why I have such thick skin in sales.
Yeah.
Probably.
Bringing so many lyrics to John and Connor and being like, nah, this is dog shit.
it would shape it shaped me for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's actually funny because I have a theatrical background, and in theater, that's a lot of it too. Is like you're putting your raw self out there. Like imagine being naked in front of people. That's scary. But imagine showing people a side of you that's so intimate and scary that you don't actually, do normally, and people love or hate it, and you're like, man, that's rough. So, and I do think that actually correlates to business too, because a lot of times in like the business side of things, it's make the idea of what needs to be done that of the person who needs to do it, so that they're more invested in wanting to do it. So they need to feel comfortable bringing those ideas to you as well.
Yeah,
so it
absolutely.
definitely correlates.
Yeah, bringing your ideas is a scary thing, and I think a lot of people are worried of being like thought of as stupid, or like, it takes time to get confidence in anything.
Totally.
And so, yeah, for sure.
It's that vicious cycle of you have to do it repetitively to get the confidence in order to do it. But in order to do it successfully, you need the confidence.
Yeah.
So it's kind of what I was talking about this morning, actually, during our team meeting, is you have to be willing to fail at scale.
Yeah.
To be
absolutely.
able to succeed, because you need all of that feedback constantly to refine. And most people just can't get past that first round of feedback to be able to fine tune and get them to a place where they can actually be successful.
Yeah, I agree with that. When I was in university, one of my really close friends at the time,
Where
Eric,
did you study?
I studied at Concordia.
Okay.
No.
What'd you take?
Industrial engineering.
Oh shit. Okay.
And Eric, who now he's like a consultant for Bain and like lives in the Middle East and is like doing super great in the world of industrial engineering. Well, it's more like high level business now than industrial engineering. But
Sure.
we were so into our program, and we were so into our summer internships. Like I loved that stuff, and so did he. And we'd have these conversations about like essentially like every time like you're tackling a problem, like you always have this moment where we always called them like shit clouds, where basically like you're in this cloud of crap and you're like, I will never get out of this thing. And then like you just have to have faith and like really believe in yourself, and you always end up getting out of it. And you look back and you're like, wow, I learned so much. And then you get this victory and like you put it on your belt. And in our discussion was basically saying it's like the more victories you have under your belt, the more confidence you have the next time you hit a shit cloud. That was kind of like the thing that we had. And I feel like I'm so grateful because I think I got a lot of victories in certain areas in my life, like quite quickly, that gave me the confidence to do other things. And so
That's such a nice way to say that you messed up so much really early on.
yeah, it's true though, right?
That's
Like,
awesome, man.
Yeah. So how did B-Cycle happen? Essentially, same buddy who played bass, Scott. So like I would go to this guy's house all the time. Like I bring my guitar, he'd make coffee, we'd go to the basement and come out like 6 hours later after like just like
That's
playing.
awesome.
It was so awesome. And we'd have these amazing jamming moments. Sometimes we'd have other people come and like we'd have these jamming moments where like we're playing like n'importe quoi, like anything. And, like we're just making stuff up. And then all of a sudden he just like dropped one note and I knew, I'm like, I bet you he's going to go into our song. And I bet you it's this song. And then like it'd be like this 4, 3, 2, 1 moment. No one's looking at each other talking, and then I would just go into it, and he'd go into it at the same time.
Sick.
And it'd be
That's
like I have goosebumps like right now.
Oh shit,
Yeah.
that's real.
Because because it was like I've had so many moments with this guy where it's just like, wow, like that was like magic. You know, you're connected with someone. And so we'd go for beers, and then one day he's like, yo, don't you want to run a marathon? And I was like, no. That sounds horrible. Like I
Most drunken conversations at a bar is like, we should totally buy a bar, dude. This guy's like, you should run a marathon. Not we, you.
yeah, right. So yeah, I was just like, no. I played sports. I was pretty fast at running and stuff like that. But like, I was never like the idea of running for prolonged periods of time. It made no sense. But then next time I went to the bar with him, like the dude like had run 10K, and then he was just like, yo, I ran 10K, and I was like, whatever, like no big deal. But the next day, I like out of spite, because he was also my best friend, but my arch nemesis. So,
Sure.
So I had
Makes sense.
I had to do at least 10K, and so I did my 10K the next time, and then I didn't tell him about it at all. I was just waiting for the next time we went for beers for when he's going to talk about his 10K, and I'm like, it's 10K, no big deal, you know. And the next time we went for the beers, he's just like, yeah, man. So I did 12K, and I was like, oh.
Damn it.
And this went on all summer, and like,
oh my God.
I ended up running a marathon, and it ended up like having a dramatic impact on the rest of my life. And the impact it had for me for the marathon was actually like halfway through the marathon, I was like, wow, this is not going to happen. This is like horrible. And at 30K, I was like, whoa, like these next 12K, I can't even imagine getting through them. And then when I completed it, I was like, wow, I just literally did something that like an hour and a half ago I thought was like absolutely impossible. And I did it. I was so proud of myself. And my background in school was I've always been like smart enough that if I listened, I really understood and could get good grades. But then I would just be like, oh, I'm so smart, and then stop studying. And then I'd always end like the year with like a 60% or something. So like, you know, I get a 95 on a test, and I'm like, oh, right, I don't need to study. And then like literally scrape by at the end. And
sounds exactly like me too. That's
Yeah.
so funny. Yeah, dude, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, it goes to that idea of like, it's not hard to be good at something. It starts to get hard to be great at things. So like, you get good at something, you're bored, you know?
Yeah,
But then
totally.
If you're really passionate about it, you'll get great at it. So
Yeah.
it is interesting to hear that, like, man, this thing that was impossible ended up happening. But I also love that you were doing it out of spite. How long?
150%. I hated the whole journey. It was the
How
worst.
long did it take before you actually told him you were running too?
So like I was leaving the house for so long to go running, and and eventually I had to get running shoes, so like proper ones. And my stepmother, who was a runner, was just like, "What are you doing? Like you literally you leave for like an hour and a half to go running." Like she's like, "I've been running for all my life. I don't run for an hour and a half. I don't run for 2 hours." And like you leave for these long periods of time.
Yeah.
And so I told my stepmom, I was like, all right, I'm training for a marathon. And she's like, oh, wow. Let me tell your father. And so I was like, oh no, so this is now real.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was like, okay, Scott, I'm training for a marathon. And then it was really cool. He helped me out a lot in the training.
Has Scott ran a marathon?
Oh yeah, well, he was training for a marathon that summer.
Oh, okay.
So he ran the marathon, and then it get even worse. Like after the marathon was over, like he's like, yo, dude, you want to do triathlon? And I was like,
Oh my God.
fast forward now, I've done 4 Ironman. You know, it's like, but it's like,
What's so cool is like a lot of people, if they're going to go beers with their buddy, those types of conversations are not what they're talking about. They're talking about chasing tail. Or they're talking about, you know, how they got hammered a couple of weeks ago or whatever. You're hanging with people that are you're helping them, they're helping you, and you guys are both rising because of your relationship together. And I think that's so cool.
Oh yeah, 100%. Everything that's ever happened to me has been driven by the relationships that I've had.
That's so cool.
For sure. Like I was in a bad group in high school, and then I basically like I went to a boarding school for a short period of time, and like I was disconnected from that group, and then like made new friends, and like the new friends were just like into things that were way better.
Yeah.
And then when I came back to Montreal, I had like no interest in hanging with those friends anymore.
Right.
And when I went to university, this is all around the marathon time, and like I was like, wow, maybe I could just work harder on things. And then like I became really close friends with the guys who had the highest GPA in my program.
Wow.
And so like we partied hard, but like we studied all the time, and it also helped that I really loved what I was doing. Like I loved industrial engineering so much, and so yeah, that combination like changed everything, because like all of those guys are doing so well today.
Wow.
Like every single one of them, and, including Scott. Scott's absolutely crushing it too. So
Good.
yeah,
It's amazing.
Yeah, you're a product of definitely the people you surround yourself
That's one of Tony Robbins' most famous quotes is, "You're the sum average of the 5 people you spend the most time with."
with. I believe that.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
It's also cool because I'm watching you talk about it, and you're talking about it with such admiration that these people succeeded.
Oh yeah.
It's so like a lot of times people want to do better than everybody in their group, and they want to be the person who's, so they don't want other people to succeed more than them, which is kind of funny. Like that's kind of goes to that story of like running, because I don't want him to beat me. But it's not, I don't want him to stop running so that I don't have to, it's, I want to do better. And then all of the people start doing better and everyone gets to a better place. So that's really cool.
Yeah. 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 It's really, really cool.
So then how did that get, you went from running a marathon to starting a whole fitness company?
Yeah, right. So I finished the marathon, and then something changed. Like I hated running, and then once you get to a specific, a certain level of fitness, suddenly working out becomes fun. That's like it takes a lot. Like it took me running a marathon to get to that threshold, and then suddenly like the idea of going out for a run sounded so fun. Like, oh, I can't wait for my next run. Like I want to go running now, because like just so much pleasure from it. But you have to get to a certain level of fitness, and that was something that was like a new paradigm shift. I think my like life is like a sum of these different paradigm shifts, and that was a big one. And so it was like my personal mission to share that paradigm with as many people as I could. And so when I was working as an engineer, like all my friends that were working around me or colleagues that like were kind of into fitness, I would like literally register them for races. Like I would like pay myself, and I'd be like, oh, Mike, by the way, you're registered for this duathlon. It's happening in September. I'm going to be doing the triathlon at the same time. So like you could DNF or just not show if you want. Or you can train with me this summer. And so like I did this with all my friends.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I was so lit up by this. And I really believe that if you can get that level of fitness and that change in your life, it could really change everything else in your life. Because that's what it did for me. Like it changed my work ethic. It changed like when I started working at Pratt, my first big job, I had like a great job, like a really hard job to get at starting out from university. And I had a lot of responsibility, and I sucked. and I sucked so bad. And it wasn't like my like Cal classes where I would like do the first exam, crush it, and like stop working. It wasn't like
Coast
that.
the rest of the way.
Here I am, like I'm starting off being like, I'm gonna crush it. I'm gonna work so hard, and I'm working so hard. And then like within 6 months, my team lead comes up to me and is like, hey, basically the boss is telling me to like help you because it's not working. So I'm like, oh my God, like I've never worked so hard in my life, and like I'm not good. And that's really like hard, because that wasn't my paradigm of life. But then I was like, oh man, like when you did your first marathon, like it was so hard, and you're like, there's no way I'm finishing this, and then you finished. So I was just like, all right, well, like there's no point of like dwelling about like how crap you are at this job, and just be like, all right, well, like this guy has experience, he's gonna tell you what to do, and you're gonna like try to do as much of it as you can, and just like whatever it's gonna be. And so I did that, and then like within the next year, like 12 months later, I was crushing my job.
Wow.
I was crushing my job. I was doing such a great job, and like I was like I was like motivation for the guy. I was by far the youngest guy on my team. Like I was working with some people that are even like 15, 20 years older than me, and it's like some of those guys were like, oh dude, I really liked working with you, like you gave me more passion, because like I see all these ideas you come up with, and see like your work ethic, and like and that was like 1 year later. But like 1 year, I was probably gonna get fired, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like so it's like that happened just because I was just like, because of the marathon. And then like another thing that's funny is like I finally got good at that job, and like was really, really doing well at Pratt. But then I was young, and I wanted more money, and then I don't know, some dude got like a bigger raise than me. I found out through the grapevine, and then I was kind of pissed, and then like I was like, I'll apply for L'Oreal. My sister's working there, and I got a job. I got like they basically accepted, and they gave me an offer that was like, I don't know, like $5,000 more or something per year, and I was just like, F you, Pratt, I'm leaving, and then like again, such a stupid decision, because like completely different culture, like not at all the same culture. Best decision of my life in terms of like learning, but like at the moment I did not realize what I was doing, and I went into a company that was like 100% sink or swim, like Pratt is not like that. They really like, look, my team lead sat down with me.
Right.
My boss
Yeah.
is like, let's coach this guy. Let's give him the tools. And like they did. And I worked hard. Pratt, I went at L'Oreal. I went into a place where like, one, it was like really only French, like at L'Oreal.
Okay.
Like Pratt was like, a lot of people were like, spoke only French, but like they would speak both languages. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like they would work with you. So I'd speak a lot of French at Pratt, but I could always communicate by email in English.
Sure.
You know?
Hmm.
L'Oreal was like everything, all your public speaking, all of your like your emails, like everything is essentially, everyone's like fully French. So I was
Right.
like, that was like one thing that made me a lot better at French at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I basically went from like crushing my job to like sucking even worse. It was, I was so, and I was just so bad. And the people, like I had a group that I was close with, they were really nice with me and really, really understanding and really, really wanted to help me.
Mm-hmm.
But I had other people that were basically like, you freaking suck. I hate working with you. Like
Oh
that's
my
what-
God.
Yeah. And so I was like depressed. I remember I called my dad. I was just like, this is I don't know what to do. And then my dad just, he always had a really good way of putting things into context. He's just like, what's preventing you from quitting tomorrow? And I was just like, well, I need to pay for my mortgage, my condo and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
he's like, okay. So like, worst comes to worst, you come back home
Hmm.
for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
And then, or 1 year, like worst case scenario, like say you're fired tomorrow.
Right.
Like, is it really that bad? Like, is life, and I was like, sure, like, it's really not that bad,
Right.
right? Like, it's not like I don't have kids and a wife. I'm like,
Yeah.
and so I was just like, and so then I was like, you're right. And then he told me, he's like, so when you go to work tomorrow, you're choosing to go to work. You're not there because you have to be there.
Right.
You made that decision. And so then I was like, I was like, all right. And then I thought about the marathon again. And I thought about Pratt. I'm like, all right, what these things have in common is just like not giving up and just like going through. And I crushed it at L'Oreal. It took a while,
Yeah.
right? I had to work on a lot of things, but eventually like you acknowledge where you're not good at. And then you spend a lot of time working on those things. And then eventually you get better at those things. And then you find out why those people like hate working with you. And then you're like, oh, okay, well that's probably pretty annoying. Let me see how I can make that better. And then
Yeah.
like you be a little bit vulnerable with these people being like, when they're like, yo, you suck because you did this. And you're like, man, I'm so sorry. In reality, I worked like an 80-hour week last week because I was trying to make that thing better. And hearing you say that like makes like, it really crushes my soul because I was really hoping to impress you. And now that person like completely sees you differently. And they're like, you worked an 80-hour week last week. Like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? And then yeah. And eventually like relationships change. And then like your work ethic was always strong, but like now the quality of my work for that business and that culture completely was like adapted. And as a result, I did really, really well. So all this to say is like fitness and my journey with fitness and like what happened in my marathon led to me at least having the courage to fail, but like just be like not throwing the towel, just be like, no, man, this is just part of it. And then eventually doing well. And so
you were working for these two companies. What kind of sparked the idea where you decided, because most people don't make the shift of, okay, I've been working for people. It's a steady income. It's a solid job.
mm-hmm.
Hey, let's throw that out the window and work for myself.
It was my dad. So my dad had way too much time on his hands because he kind of like semi-retired.
Nice.
And so he's like, oh, what I go? And then these guys came up to him and they're like, oh, there's this franchise in the States called Flywheel. It's not franchise, but they were thinking of having franchises. It's
Yeah.
a spinning concept. And these guys really want to bring it to Canada. And they reached out to my dad. And my dad's like, oh, you bike. Maybe you'd like to be part of this.
Right.
So I was like, oh, maybe. And so, and at that point, I was fully into triathlon. I was doing Ironman, half Ironman.
Wow.
I was like,
Okay.
I was like super into to a whole other level. And so I was like, yeah, absolutely. And my dad's also one of those people I brought on that journey. So my dad like got really into biking.
Oh,
he did
cool.
a ride to conquer cancer multiple times. He got in phenomenal shape. So it's like, so I was like, okay, great. Well, let's go take a look at it. And then after like looking at these concepts, we're just like, we sat down together and he's like, why don't we just like do it ourselves?
Yeah.
You know, like no one knows this company in Canada. And quite frankly, like, I think we could do a better job, you know? And like,
Yeah.
and then we talked a lot about it. This was like in 2013. And then at the end of 2013, he's just like, would you quit your job to do this? Like for real? Or not. Like it's fun
Yeah.
that we've been talking, we've been going to studios, we've been traveling, you've been going to New York to try like all these different products.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll quit my job. I'll do it. And to be honest, I didn't put much thought into it. Like I was like, oh man, it'd be really cool to create a product where somebody who doesn't see themselves as an athlete at all suddenly be like, has this paradigm shift where they're just like, oh, wow, like I can get fit, you know, like, oh, wow, maybe I can do some things that I never really thought I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And then like maybe some of the experiences I had in my life translates and like they get to have those similar experiences. And so
out of curiosity, you had mentioned Flywheel was the other company. They had something that you felt was missing or that you could expand upon or do better. What was that?
Well, at the time there was two companies. There was like SoulCycle and Flywheel. Those were like the big like players, and like one of the founders of like SoulCycle left and started Flywheel. That's like basically like how these two things started, right? And then like I was going to SoulCycle and I was like, wow, man, they've got no metrics, no nothing. They just have this like instructor on a mic and these like very crummy bikes and candles. And this person like plays like Mumford and Sons and says a few things, and then all of a sudden like you're like crying on your bike and you're like, this was like a life-changing experience. That was SoulCycle. Wow. And then like Flywheel was, we have all these numbers and leaderboards, and like if you're into that stuff, it's really fun. And so I was like, this other company was able to like do, I always wanted to go to the SoulCycle classes, but I was like a numbers guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just like, there's something in between the two that I think that can happen. And that was like that was what I had in my mind. I'm like, I really think there's something there. And yeah, that's kind of like how we started off, not knowing anything, just knowing like these two companies have done something really cool. I think we can do a blend of the two of them. And then when we started, we were really bad, like really like it was like an engineer.
I'm noticing a pattern here.
Yes, right. Like the only difference is like had way more confidence that we could figure it out, I guess you could say.
Right.
And what really helped for that one was when we started, like I built out the class, like I went to so many classes, so many different studios, built this whole like checklist of like what needs to be in a class. And we hired and trained our own people. I wasn't teaching at the time. It was like, we had Linda who helped us like design our first class. And me and Linda spent like every single day together being like, okay, class should be like this. This is how we should train our people. And then it was just like, wasn't really happening. And like, also we were charging like, you know, $25 to do a spin class. Whereas like, you can go to the YMCA down the street and like pay like, I don't know, like $60 for an unlimited membership at the YMCA. And you can go swimming, you can go yoga, you could do spinning, you could do all of this different stuff. So like Montreal wasn't yet really there in terms of like understanding the value. So it was hard. And then my dad's like, you should look up to see if there are consultants that can help you with this. So I was like, a spinning consultant? I was like, ha ha ha. So I looked it up, and then there's this girl named Stephanie Neiman who was like a spinning consultant at the time.
What?
Used to work for like Flywheel, then like, and you know, used to work for SoulCycle, then left and worked at the Flywheel, and then after that left and then worked for Peloton when it was like nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, and then she left Peloton, and she's like helping people start studios. And so I was like, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna waste my money. And basically, we had like no money at that point. Like we're like basically like you have a bank account with like not that much money in it, and you're just like, okay, I have 3 months left to live. You know, like this is like, so like, and I'm like, if this girl's gonna cost me like $5,000, I'm like, oh my god, like that's a lot of my money, like, you know. And so spoke with her a little bit, and like she said some things. She's just like, well, what's the emotional journey you want to bring people on? And I was like, I don't know. Like, it's just like, how do you express that through music? And I was just like, I don't know. And so she right. It's just like more bass. So like she came and she made me like, she asked me so many questions, and she's like, if you want people to deliver a product that's going to have the things that you want in it, you need to show it to them, and you need to be the person that does it. And so I spent like a week with her, like every single day, like, I don't know, 8 hours a day on the bike, basically like designing a class that really was going to manifest the experience I wanted. And at the ending of it, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like I saw it in like the class that we had built together. I'm like, wow, like this roadmap is so clear. There's an emotional journey that's expressed through dialogue, tone, and music. And then there's a physical journey of the stuff that you're doing. And then I was like, I get it. And so then I showed it to like my 6 instructors at the time. and we had this whole workshop afterwards, and was like, this is what I want to do at B-Cycle. What do you guys think? And all of them were like, I want to do that. And then from that day on, we worked as a team to make the product that we had. And that's when it started. From that point on, it was like we're all learning together, creating this product that was like a mix of like metrics and I guess self-expression of like of this emotional journey you want to bring people through, to really inspire them to push at moments they probably wouldn't want to push. And that's how we created like our mantra. The first mantra is come as you are, which that one was like we had day one. We nailed that day one. Like it doesn't matter what age you are. Like we've always made people feel so comfortable when they come in. But the last two,
great lyric too.
Yeah.
And the other one was surpass your expectations, and that's the one that we were missing, right? Like how do you inspire people to surpass their expectations?
Right.
And
So that's what's going to get them to come back.
And that's what's going to get them to have that paradigm shift, right? Like if you're like in a class, you're like, I can't do it. And then someone's just like, yes, you can. Like, I believe in you. And they get that sort of feeling and they do it. They're going to be like, whoa, that complete, maybe my bar is not where it should be. And the last one's be your own athlete, meaning like what is an athlete for every person is different.
Right.
And it's like, hopefully B-Cycle can be one of the many tools to like help redefine your relationship with that. So.
Yeah, because everyone's goals and like ideals are going to be different. So be your own athlete. What is an athlete to you? Because a lot of people will think, well, LeBron James is an athlete and he's just like designed to be that, so I can never be that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People, I think, and it's, you could throw that term out and it means something so different for everyone, right? Like in triathlon, like the guys who train for the Olympics, they train 30 hours a week. Like if you try to understand like what that means and how many hours per day of cardio, like it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
You just can't imagine it, right? But like anybody who trains 10 hours a week as a like person who has a full time job is absolutely considered insane. And then for most people, it's actually, if you work out 3 hours a week, that's considered like, they're like, wow, I work out.
Right.
So like, there is no bar that matters. So what matters is like, what's your bar, and let's get you to do it. And you'll move beyond that. Yeah, you'll push beyond it. Yeah. Like once you do it over and over, you're gonna be like, oh, I could do that. And yeah, it's about that journey.
It's kind of funny when there is a barometer too, because for us, I have a background with my fitness journey was through a company for like theatrical jousting and sword fighting and stuff like that. So we stayed fit for the job a lot of the time, but then it took us all on our fitness journeys, which was really fun. But one of the things, we always had to pass a fitness test every year. And one of the things in that fitness test was 5 pull-ups. And I know it sounds ridiculous and it's silly that 5 pull-ups sounds like an obstacle, but it was hard for a lot of people. And it turns out that the majority there's like 97% of the population or something like that cannot do 5 pull-ups. They can barely even do 1. So if you could do 5, you're so much further ahead of the game. But then how much further can you take that? And how much more can you run with that? And it's kind of cool to be able to be that elite for yourself in your own mind.
Exactly.
Cool.
Did you always have the vision for the multiple locations, or how quickly did that come to enter your mind's eye?
I did not have the vision. My dad did. And actually my dad, he's like, we're only opening this so we can open 40.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He's just like we're going to go big or not at all. And for me, that's just like another world for me. I never, I wasn't into business really. I was into industrial engineering, optimizing things. I was really into triathlon and fitness. And now I was getting into creating this this experience that redefines people's relationship with exercise.
Yeah.
So the concept of expanding and opening multiple studios was something that wasn't top of mind for me. I was like, how do I create this experience?
Yeah.
And my dad's like, how do we expand?
It's good. You got a good 2-person relationship on that one. That's really cool.
Yeah, because if it wasn't for him, we would have probably never expanded. And we're like, okay, we're going to open up 2 new, we didn't want to open 2 at the same time, but people think oh, okay, cool. Let's open a business. Is okay, cool. We'll find a location and open it. but it's not like that. It's like just finding your location is really
Of
hard.
course, and then it's so important too.
So important. And then see if you find a location that you like is like the architecture of that location like even conducive to the services you want to offer?
Right.
Is the dollars per square foot of your lease even conducive to like the business metrics that you want to have?
Right.
Like there's like all of these different things that like have to all go together for it to work, you know? And so we worked so hard to find a second location, and then we found 2 locations that were giving us great deals that really made sense, and they landed at the same time. And so we're like, okay, we'll open 2 studios at the same time.
That was, you started with 2 locations?
No, we started with 1.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
And
we
then
start, and then after like a year and a half of 1, like not even like after year 1.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah. After year 1, my dad's like, let's start working on number 2, and like that was inconceivable for me, but I was like, all right, let's do it. And so I was kind of like following him around and like crunching the numbers, and then as time goes, we spent a lot of time. It took us like we opened 2000, so like 2013, my dad's like, are you going to do it? 2014, we incorporate the company. 2014 October, we signed a lease. 2015 March, we open B-Cycle Vieux Port, and then we open our next 2 studios summer of 2018. But it took us a long time because in 2016 we already started like looking at new locations and all that, and we only signed something like, I guess it must have been like late 2017.
Wow, nice.
Right? So like,
so you're still a ways off from 40 though, right?
oh yeah.
So what's the game plan for that?
That
You're just gonna let it kind of happen organically a little bit,
well,
or do you have some like different cities you're looking in next, or what's kind of the growth strategy for you guys right now?
So the way that it changed was like, so my dad's like, my dad was really into the franchise model, and I had a hard time with it because I was like losing control of my baby. Like the idea is like was really
well, especially you focus so much on the experience that people have when they attend and all of that. So you do definitely risk losing that.
Exactly, and it just like means so much to me. Like you know, like everything for the last 10 years of my life has been this company,
right?
And I really believe in it. Like I believe in it so much, and I only want to hire people that believe in it. Like anyone who's in the team is just like, oh, I'm not into the inspirational stuff. I'm like, I really don't think you should work here. You know, like it's just because like like we really believe in it. And like,
do you still have your hands in the hiring process right now? Like,
no, not at all.
Okay, I was wondering because you were talking about kind of interviewing people. As that was earlier on.
What do you mean?
Like, you're part of the hiring process right now? No, but you were.
Oh yeah, at the beginning.
Okay,
at the beginning I was like fully. I did everything.
Yeah,
I even cleaned the floors. You know, like
right.
The toilets and everything. And then, but no, now we have like a whole team of managers that take care of absolutely everything.
Awesome.
Nice.
But
was that hard to let go of?
Oh,
not the cleaning the floors, obviously. That's easy to let go of. But
it was hard. To clean the floors was hard. Everything was hard to let go of because eventually, like you. Man, because you're like, you do it and you're like, this is how it has to be done, and then you're like, this is amazing, and then like somebody else does it and they're like this is not their studio, this is not their life, right? You know, so like, and you have to like hit a level of standard that you're like, okay, this is acceptable, but like I know it's not my level of doing it, but like it's really 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 good, and I think that's part of letting go. And then when you allow that to happen, sure, like some people aren't as good as you at certain things, but they're better than you in a lot of other things. And
True.
And that's where it becomes really cool. And so then you alleviate like responsibility. You allow people to make mistakes. You have to let people make a lot of mistakes at the beginning. I find that's been my style. Like you let them make the mistakes. You let them see that it's a massive mistake. You sit down with them and you're like, all right, so like, how could you have done it differently? Let them come up with the solutions, coach them a little bit. And then those that stick around, end up becoming amazing, and they're really good, and then they contribute, they come up with all these ideas, and now like all the stuff we do at B-Cycle, it's like, it's not me, it's like it's the team that has come up with them. And I'm just the person who basically in the end is just like, yes, I really believe we should do this, let's go,
right?
You know, but that's about it. Now it's really the team that.
How long did it take you to kind of get to the point now where almost everything is leveraged and you're just kind of the final decision maker? How long was that process?
I think COVID like nailed that process in pretty hard because so like beforehand, like in 2018, I was fully involved into everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2020 happened. And then there was like, when we had to reopen, there was no more bandwidth. Like it
All
was,
the momentum was gone, or
well, it's like, so B-Cycle at that time had like over 100 employees. Okay.
Wow.
And like a huge percentage of those employees were staff. Okay.
Yeah.
And so every time the government would be like, time to reopen, at first, like all of them were like, we're back. But then like when you're closed for 2 years, most of your staff's gone, man.
Yeah.
And so like I had like, there was so much, like I was taking care of all the bookkeeping and all of like the grants from the government and like anything that had to do, like we were trying to open up pop-up. So I was negotiating those leases. And then we launched an online studio. It's me who like basically took care of like with my team, but I was heavily involved in like what is the mixer that we're going to get? Like, what is the software we're going to use?
Yeah.
How are we going to make this happen? You know, like what is the platform we're going to like use to make this happen? We launched a whole bike rental business. We bought like hundreds of thousands of dollars of bikes from like that were brand new all the way to bikes that were from like secondhand from the United States. I was traveling to like Texas and California and like testing these bikes. And so like very busy.
Yeah.
And at this point now suddenly you have to open up the studios and you have to rehire 100 people. You're like maybe 50. Okay.
Right.
yeah.
And you suddenly realize that like also all of the training that we had done was basically like, we had a lot of people that stick around at B-Cycle for a long time being like, yeah, let me show you the ropes. And it worked. But then like now we were like, those people were gone.
Yeah, you're starting from scratch.
We're starting from scratch and it was like horrible. It was so bad. And our service went down and it wasn't the experience we wanted. And like, I did not have the time to do that. So like at that point, you're basically looking at your team and you're like, all right, like figure it out, you know, and show me everything you put together. And they bring it to you and they show it. And then, and I had no choice but to let go. But then you start seeing, you're like, wow, people can come up with such amazing things. And then like, honestly, I feel as though like my managers today manage studio way better than I did, because when I was managing a studio, I had to take care of everything, you know? And so I wasn't probably that good at all these details, but now the managers, they manage a studio on like such a level of detail of like, how are they going to train their staff and like evaluate them and get feedback from them? And like, how are we going to, like, what is a detailed checklist of everything that needs to get done every single shift, every single week, every single month, like for every single equipment, you know, like it's so on another level. And that was done because they came up with that stuff.
Yeah.
And so COVID, it just forced me to like let go of that stuff. And then, I was really lucky because after that, I realized I'm like, wow, if you have the right people, you can make it happen.
That's awesome.
When you had the right people from before, you just carried a lot of them over. You lost a bunch of them, which kind of sucks. But yeah, that's very interesting.
Now, how many marathons have you ran now since you started on your fitness journey and marathon journey and everything?
I was trying to count the other day.
You could ballpark it.
I think it's like 12. I think I've done 12 marathons.
12 marathons.
Yeah,
and how many triathlons?
That I can't count. I've done a lot of triathlons. Like just
Okay.
like if, cause I used to, in my first year, I got so into it. I would do like one every single weekend almost.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like any distance. Like I was just like super into it. And then I did my first half Ironman that year. And then the next year I did my first Ironman. And that summer too, I did tons of triathlons. And then since then I would do like multiple like half Ironmans in a year. And then when I opened B-Cycle, I was like done with, like after 2013, I pretty much stopped doing triathlon. And I just got back into it last year.
Oh, very cool.
And so like, I was turning 40 and I was just like, let's see if I can be as fit as I was in my 30s.
That's awesome.
Or my 20s at 40.
So a lot of people, I can't say who, but a lot of people are calling you the white Canadian David Goggins. How do you respond to that?
That guy's way more hardcore than me.
Well, yeah, you're white and Canadian, so it's like
that part's totally accurate. That guy has so much grit. Oh my God.
Oh.
I really love his stuff actually. Big fan.
he's dope.
Yeah.
Really, really cool stuff. What does your diet look like when you're training versus not training? Or does it change much, or are you just like clean living most of the time? Or
no, I'm not super clean. I like to eat like, I think my diet is kind of driven by what my goal is at that time of the year.
Okay.
And so, for example, this summer when I was training for my Ironman, I'd have like these 5-hour training days to 7-hour training days. Okay. Like it's not every day. It would be like, that would be like the big training of the week,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's a big deal. And like you burn somewhere between like 5,000 to 7,000 calories, right? Like it's insane. So like on those days, my number one goal was to get those calories back into me. So like on my way home, I would like hit up a McDonald's and like eat like 2 massive meals before I go home to eat dinner, right? And is that the right food to eat? No, but like I also knew that if I didn't eat that, I would never get the calories. Like it was impossible to eat that many calories between that and like bedtime, and then even my big breakfast the next morning. Like I would never make it.
What is that story at the Olympic Village that like the McDonald's is the #1 seller at any Olympic Village?
I've heard that over and over
Yeah,
again.
yeah, because they know they need to consume like 10 to 15,000 calories, especially the swimmers and the runners and stuff like that. They're mental, so they're just like slamming the Big Macs.
And that's the only way that they could do it with the time that they have. Is they line up at McDonald's.
If you have the goal of eating somewhere between 7,000 to 10,000 calories in a day, you need to eat a ton of sugar. Like that's just what it is, and a lot of fat. Like it's just sugar in terms of
where you're having like 20 meals.
Yeah. Imagine if you had salad. Imagine how much salad you'd have to eat. Jesus. And just like it ends up being a volume problem. Like your stomach doesn't have the the volume capacity,
right?
So you're like, okay, I know what volume I could probably consume. You're like, how can I get as many calories into this volume?
Yeah.
And then like usually the bad food is like the stuff that has the most calories.
Max Lugavere, he's a dietitian that I follow. He talks about that with potatoes. He's like, try to eat potatoes with nothing. Just eat potatoes like that. You won't get very far. Eat a bag of potato chips. Yeah. You'll consume 1,000 calories, no problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you could, if you're putting like fats on it and you're putting salt and you're putting all this other stuff on it, you can eat a lot more.
I can just imagine the listeners to the podcast being like, so I should eat
McDonald's? No, don't. I think if
you're burning 7,000 calories a day, okay, maybe.
Yes, okay, maybe.
But you're not, so don't.
Like I'm now in my my off season, and so like I'm not burning anywhere close to that,
right?
You know? And so like I'm very I'm actually like I want to lose some weight, not for aesthetic reasons. I just like there's a specific weight I'd like to be at for racing.
Okay.
And I used to do that like when I'm in my 20s. I used to try to do that like closer to my race, but then I've learned now that it's actually like if you're trying to lose weight while you're trying to gain in performance, those two things don't really go well together. So it's important to get your weight first and then like basically try not to lose any weight, maybe even gain some weight while you're trying to get performance. It's kind of like bodybuilders.
Sure.
Right? If you want to bulk up, you got to eat.
Yeah.
Anabolic and catabolic.
Yeah. So now I'm like, I'm counting all my calories. I'm trying to eat like really high nutrient food. And the thing that helps with that is that it essentially like has more volume also. You feel more, if you eat the full potato, you're gonna be like, wow, I'm really full. I ate a full potato, right? But like I only had like 200 calories maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So yeah, so it depends. So my goal now is to like try to lose a little bit of weight before I go into the next season. So
it really feels awesome to have spoken to you so much about something that you're clearly so passionate about. So, for those people who might be listening and thinking about diving into entrepreneurship, what kind of things can you tell them in order for them to, maybe find something that they are passionate about, or what kind of lessons have you pulled from your journey that you would want somebody who's listening to this, who's debating entrepreneurship, to take with them?
I think the first thing that's really important is like you really got to believe in what you're doing, because whatever you think is like the hardest thing you've ever done, it is like multiple magnitudes way harder. That's at least that's what was my experience, and that's the experience I have from anybody else I know that started a business. I have a few friends. And so it is like so freaking hard and demoralizing and soul crushing. And also when it comes to like, sharing your lyrics with your friends, well, like this is your baby, it's your product, and like people will probably have problems with your product. And so you're going to have multiple moments where you're like, why am I doing this? And if you're answering that why, when you're like, why am I doing this? If you can't answer that question very quickly in that moment, That's hard.
Yeah.
You know, they say like before an Ironman, you should be figuring out the why way before you start the race, because like when you get to like the halfway through the marathon portion when it's really hurting, if you know, you don't want to be answering that question. And I think it's the same thing in entrepreneurship. Like I knew why I wanted to do it. I like, as cheesy as it sounds, I was like, I wanted to change people's lives. I wanted people that worked out maximum 1 time a week and thought working out 3 times a week was like stellar, to become the person who works out every single day, and they do it because they love it, and it has brought a lot of joy and love into other parts of their life, and they could live like more fulfilled lives because of it, you know. And so whenever it was hard, I'm like, I'm doing it for that person. And so I would say like that's probably like the first thing to figure out. Really believe in your product and have this like huge attachment to it. And it doesn't have to be that, like, you know, some people like are really motivated by money. Like, and like, if that's your thing, like if you're motivated by the idea of making money and you see the potential in that business making that money and you really think it could do it, like, I think that could work for some people, you know?
It's a quantifiable key performance indicator, so you can track it. And if you track it, it'll grow. Exactly.
You know, and my dad's like my dad like is very motivated by the game of it, you know, like he's not like he's super generous. He's like when it comes to like spending money on people that he loves and helping and like charity, like probably the most generous guy I know. When it comes to like something that lights him up, he's just like coming up with different ways to like play the game of money, to be like, how can I make more? Yeah. Like he loves it, you know, like the amount of phone calls my dad would get, he'd be like, hey, I thought about this idea about B-Cycle, you know, it's like another way like of like, he's brilliant when it comes to it, and it lights him up so much, you know. And what lights me up is like changing people's lives. Take those 2 things, put them together. Wow, you can come up with something really amazing, right?
No, that's where the magic happens. Well, Bijan, thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with us today. We'd love to have you back. I feel like we ripped through this 45-minute session, and like feel like we barely scratched the surface with you. So I had so much fun. Thank you so much. Thanks for everyone tuning in to another episode of Montreal's Elite Unleashed, podcast for hustlers looking to level up their lives. Thanks again, Bijan. That's all we got.
That's all she wrote.